It could be argued that Eliphaz and his friends are trying to parent Job in different ways, both in a nurturing sense and in a controlling sense. You could say as well that Job gives as good as he gets in trying to parent them back in a controlling way. Now, can the way transactional analysis frames the parent and child ego states help shed any light on how these exchanges play out? Hello and welcome to this video on dealing with complexity at church. We are exploring frameworks and models and how they apply to the conversations we might have. This video looks at Eric Berne's transactional analysis, which gives us more insight into what can happen when we get stuck between the move and oppose we explored in our last video. Transactional analysis suggests we shift between three different ego states when we're talking to others, and each of these states elicits a different set of thoughts, emotions, and behaviours. And they are the parent ego state. This is where you think, feel, and behave in ways based on previous experiences with authority in your life, channeling your own parents, maybe your teachers, and other dominant figures. And this could have perhaps been either a controlling or a nurturing experience. Then there's the child ego state, where you think, feel, and behave as you did when you were a child, perhaps being compliant or rebellious, depending on the situation. And then there's the adult ego state, where you think, feel, and behave in a way that is more realistic, based on an objective appraisal of your experiences, drawing from a wider pool of information about yourself, your situation, and the person you're talking with. And this, of course, has overlaps with David Cantor's bystander, which we looked at last time. So when you find yourself getting stuck in endless repeating patterns of negative behaviour, it's probably because you're channeling your inner parent or child. But channeling your adult self is key to breaking out of these patterns and finding healthier ways of dealing with them. And this is the objective of transactional analysis. So let's take an example and see how these combinations can play out. Say someone sees you on your phone at church and disapproves. Here are some of the approaches they might take to let you know and to get you to change your behaviour. They might adopt a controlling parent. Listen, it's not good that you're on your phone during church. This is a distraction and you really should be giving the service your full attention. I'm really disappointed in you. Then we have the nurturing parent. Hi, look, I'm worried that you're missing out on really important Bible study when you're on your phone in church. What do you think about putting it away during the service and then going back on it afterwards? Someone might adopt a compliant child. Are you on your phone? Are you allowed to be on your phone? Are you scared someone's going to see you and have a go? I'd get off your phone. Get off your phone. Come on, get off your phone, please. If they're channeling their rebellious child, they might have a tantrum or slap the phone out your hand and sulk. And of course, you're going to respond yourself and channel maybe the controlling parent, nurturing parent, rebellious child, or compliant child. And here's some examples of that. If you were to respond as a compliant child, it might sound like this. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I knew I shouldn't have been on my phone. I've let you down, I know. I won't do it again. The rebellious child, mind your own business. Do what I like. Get lost. If you're to respond as a nurturing parent to somebody who challenges you, you might say, oh, really? Look, I'm actually really concerned that you get het up about things quite quickly, and I know there's lots bothering you right now. Things okay with you? And if you would respond as a controlling parent, you might say, how dare you? How dare you speak to me like that? It's not very loving. Have a mind to let the elders know you've been talking to people like this. So I'm sure you can imagine for yourself how these different combinations might play out and how they might go back and forth. And it's interesting to note that some of these transactions can create a reciprocal relationship. For example, if a controlling parent and a compliant child are exchanging transactions, it often maintains a relationship. It's complementary, and it can go on indefinitely in that state. However, when one state is met with the same state, for example, controlling parent and another controlling parent, things can escalate until one of the individuals backs down and assumes the role of maybe a compliant child, and it becomes complementary again. But while they're dissonant, they can escalate, and here's some examples of what could happen. So with a controlling parent and another controlling parent, this would escalate in telling each other off and trying to maintain that position of the one in control. And this would only end when one of the two either becomes a compliant child and apologizes, or rebels and is just rude and storms off. Let's take a look at some other examples quickly. A rebellious child versus a rebellious child would result in an escalation in how naughty you can be until maybe one of them gets scared they'll get caught or told off, or one of them grows up and decides actually the situation needs controlling, or in a nurturing way they'll feel concerned for the other's well-being and will say so. And this generally happens amongst children that are daring each other to do more and more risky things until one of them backs down and says, actually, I don't think we should be doing this. A compliant child and another compliant child would escalate in each being as much of a goody-goody as possible, or following the rules as much as possible, until one of them gives up and decides to start either being controlling in a different way or becoming rebellious instead because they can't keep up. It might be something like, I've got grade 4 on my flute. Well, I've got grade 5 on my recorder. Well, I think you stink. Or they might adopt a controlling parent instead and go, well, actually, you shouldn't brag about things like that. It's bragging and that's wrong. Because they can't keep up with the acts of compliance. And these things never stay in an equilibrium. They always break into some sort of complementary transaction. So nurturing parent versus nurturing parent escalates in how much one can show concern over the other until that breaks down as well. So that might go like, I'm really concerned with how things are for you at the moment. It just seems really tough. Well, it can't be as bad as it is for you. You've got all this going on. It's terrible. Well, yes, but, you've got a real issue there, haven't you, with that problem you've got? Now, these are very broad stereotypes that we're using here, but they're maps, of course. And it doesn't mean that the stages of parent and child aren't useful. Like when we've been looking at order and chaos, we sometimes need some structure, authority and accountability, and sometimes we need to shake things up. Just like we might need some control in some situations, and in other times some creative flair that comes with being a bit rebellious. But essentially, the parent and child ego states are utilised in order to try and change or manipulate another person's behaviour and get them to do what you want, which, as we've seen through the other videos, is kind of an impossible task. Everything we've learnt from Job suggests we can't control another person's behaviour, the things they think, the things that they do. But it seems that the parent and child ego states are really demanding things from other people, either directly or covertly. And so this is where adult comes in. As we said, it draws from more information about the context. It's more self-aware and will consider how the other person might feel as well. They're probably reaching to that level 3 and level 4 listening, to be empathetic about how they're considering attending to the other person they're talking to. But this is not someone who is a pushover. They can listen to the other person and still work themselves around to making a request of them. And our next video on nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg will address this request part, because although we can't control other people and change their behaviours, we can position ourselves in a way that means we can listen to them and make requests of them, so that they would then be willing to potentially meet one of our needs as a gift rather than as a demand.